Hey, welcome to the third episode of Tercel Talk, Frank Conversations. This one's called, by the way, 5-Speed. It is a gorgeous day here in Eugene, which, by the way, I never share with anybody outside of Oregon. When they ask me about Oregon, oh man, the rain is worse than you hear. Yeah, downtown last year, rained so hard, a couple of guys looked up, didn't look down in time, drowned. You don't want to move here. I don't want anybody else moving in. Somebody who actually enjoyed somebody who enjoyed the first two episodes of Tercel Talk said to me, why don't you do anything political? I mean, you know, it's an election season, and a couple of reasons. Number one, are you telling me there's not enough discourse going on about politics that I need to add to it? I mean, if you're watching this on Facebook, look above me, look below me, chances are there's enough political nonsense talk going on to keep you busy for days. Number two, I've got a degree, and it's not that I don't know about politics or care about politics. I have a degree in political science from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And I'm 2 courses away from a degree in economics. So chances are I know as much or more about politics and the economy as the average politician. But here's the deal. Even with what I believe to be well-reasoned arguments, I have never, ever, ever in my entire livelong life ever changed anybody's opinion on anything. So why would I waste the time? And that brings me to the third reason. I'm 60 years old. I've had 2 aortic valve replacements, a double bypass, heart attack, and 3 stents. I battle depression, and I'm occasionally suicidal. So if life was a football game, I am literally in sudden death overtime. Why would I spend any of that arguing about something over which I have absolutely no control? I mean, it's not my job. It's way above my pay grade. I'll tell you what is my job, is bringing the laughs. That's something the world has too little of, I believe. That, and I speak on mental health awareness, depression, suicide, signs, symptoms, and solutions. I do that because, as I said, I battle depression. I've had thoughts of suicide, and it runs in my family. It actually has a name. It's called generational depression and suicide. Yeah, I mean, everybody in my family, to a person, is crazy at some level. There are more nuts in my family than in a 50-pound bag of squirrel feed. So it's near and dear to my heart. So yesterday I did a keynote at the Sheldon Park Senior Living Facility, open to the public, on depression and suicide. A friend of mine, one of my mental health, stand up for mental health students, called me, said she'd like to come. I said, it's open to the public. She goes, well, I'll ride the bus there if you can give me a ride back, drive me home. I said, fine. So she gets there. Her name is Elisa. She's one of my students. I got to tell you, the stand up for mental health students, some of the best students I've ever had. I'll give you 3 jokes from my mental health, stand up for mental health students. Number 1, Lisa Ann. She had last name withheld, client, comedian, confidentiality. She had been to a 12-step meeting, and I guess they somehow Christopher Columbus had come up in conversation. So she comes into class that day and she goes, I believe Christopher Columbus was an alcoholic. And I said, why do you think he was an alcoholic? She goes, well, think about this. His big plan, his big money-making plan was to sail west to get east, and he did it. And like an alcoholic, when he got there, he had no idea where he was. When he got back, like an alcoholic, he had no idea where he'd been. And like an alcoholic, he got a woman to pay for it twice. There is not a word in that does not move the narrative forward. It's amazingly good writing. And that's how she wrote it. It wasn't that she wrote it and edited it. That's the second one. I've got a student who is bipolar. And she said, my boyfriend, he wants to break up. And I said, why does your boyfriend want to break up with you? She said, because he said, I want to see other people. So she says, I said, I'm bipolar. Give me a minute. My personal favorite, Camille, again, last name withheld, said that she'd gone to see her psychiatrist, and he had asked her, are you depressed? Yes. Are you having thoughts of suicide? Yes. Do you have a plan? And she said, I've got 5 plans. He said, you got 5 plans? She goes, yeah. Do you want to hear them all, or just the ones that involve you? Oh my God. Yeah, anyway, Elisa comes to the meeting, comes to the keynote. It goes well, standing room only. We had a good time. And we're walking out to the car. We're leaving the facility, walking out of the car, and she points and she goes, "Is that the Tercel? The one you stole?" And I said, "Yeah, that is the Tercel." She goes, "I didn't think you actually drove that all the time." I go, "What do you think? It's a prop? Just my studio? Of course I drive it all the time." Then she gets inside in here and she looks around and she goes, "Well, now I know why there's never anybody riding with you." Again, she is very funny. Let's see, where was I going from that? Oh, and she points and she says, "It's a manual transmission. I've got a 5-speed. And I love the 5-speed. And I don't know whether it's because my first car was a Camaro, Chevrolet 68 3-speed. My second car was a little Honda, 1974. It was a 4-speed, one of the very first Honda cars that was actually street legal in the U.S. And more on that in a minute, or in another episode. Or whether it's because the stick shift allows me to do things that most millennials, I'm betting 9 out of 10 millennials, can't do and may have never even heard of. If the battery goes dead in the Tercel, because it has a manual transmission, I do not need jumper cables. All I need is a hill or a friend. I just need to get this bad boy going about 5 or 6 miles an hour, jump in, turn the key, pop the clutch, boom, baby. We are motoring. Yeah. And you know why millennials can't do that? There ain't no app for it. Second thing, it's got a clutch and a manual transmission, but I don't need the clutch. I learned decades ago to do what they call speed shift. Now, if there are millennials watching this video on Facebook, when I said speed shift, I'm guessing they're staring at the screen like Kim Kardashian staring at the New York Times crossword puzzle. I worked for a company called PTA Pizza Transit Authority at a location in Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. They had these little Chevettes. It was Chevy's first effort to make a high mileage car right after the Arab oil embargo in the mid-70s. And it was just a little tin can, little roller skate. But it had a three-speed standard transmission. And here's the deal. Speed shifting is this. If you can get the car at the right RPM, you can go from first to second without using the clutch. Get it up a little higher RPM, you can go from second to third without ever using the clutch. Speed shifting. So I bet you not 1 in 10 millennials can pull that off. And why is that? Because there's no app for it. Finally, again, 5-speed transmission, if I was ever honored, allowed to help write an episode of The Walking Dead, I would have a scene in there where you got this impossibly good-looking millennial young man running down the deserted highway with the leaves blowing across it. 30 seconds behind him, the undead. He comes upon a car. He looks inside, what are the odds? Well, the keys are in it. He looks at the dashboard. There's gas in it, but he's still thinking, what are chances it's going to start? Jumps in, cranks it, it starts, and then the camera goes down, pans down to the stick shift, and it's a manual transmission. And the next thing is a shot from outside the car, and you can see the guy's shoulder moving, and you can hear the gears grinding as he's trying to get it in first gear so he can run from the zombies. Followed by a scene where the rest of his group, the rest of the survivors, arrive at the vehicle, and the doors open, the car's running. Of course, the front seat's covered in, you've seen the show. What happens when the zombies get you? You become zombie takeout. And a millennial says, "Wow, what happened? Why didn't he just drive away? I mean, the car's running." A middle-aged person looks in, sees a stick shift, and says, "Well, it's obvious. See, he probably couldn't drive a stick." And then the guy with the crossbow never cracks a smile, never says anything funny. He goes, "Yeah, and the big problem is there's no app for that." Oh man. So here's my advice. Election's over. I don't know who you voted for. I don't care. I don't really care who won or lost. Here's my advice. For today, go out and grab life by the stick shift. Later.